You were created to create.
And now that you're here, the only way to unlock and unfold that is you find ways to continue to create.
When you stop learning, you stop growing. Your biggest purpose is how are you going to crack the code on you?
Alrighty, well, welcome back. It's me, Matt Lee. Tune in Tuesday, Allergic to Average family. I want to welcome you back. I am excited because we are now hopping into what you'll see as kind of like a series, all right? So it's something, maybe you've heard of it, maybe not, the A16 Basics, okay? And so this has been something that I've taken into workplaces and organizations, middle schools, high schools. I've done some work with it in colleges. This is just a tool and a resource on really what's one of the biggest issues that we find with, individuals getting into that allergic to average, state of mind. What does that look like? So the biggest thing I want you to really get from the A16 Basics, okay, every single week here on out, I'm going to give you step 1 through 16, okay? And those come from, you can see it on my shirt here, right? Allergic to average. Okay, there's 16 letters. That's including the 2. We count that as 1. Every single one of these will be a step, okay, will be a guide on how to get out of the default mind, the average way of thinking, okay, kind of where we're all at a certain point of life, especially once we're 16, 17, 18 years old, right? And how do we get into a designed way of thinking, a designed mindset, okay? Because the average stays in default. They stay where they were, taught, where they were programmed to believe and think, what they saw growing up. And so the designed mindset is an allergic to average individual like yourself who is starting to design and really become an architect of the way that you think and what you partner with mentally. Because if you can design the way you think, you can design the way that you live. And that's really the goal for every single one of us. Okay, so I'm going to hop into this and just start with our first one. All right, step 1, we can also call these chapters, right? I like to call them steps. But our first one is abandon. Okay, first step is in that first A. We're going with abandon. All right, so check it out. Most people never fail because they aren't talented enough. It's not that they fail because they could never do enough or have enough. They fail because they never let go of what's keeping them from starting. Okay, that's really the honest truth of why most people are finding themselves in a state of I'm a failure, or I can't, or I tried, right? And it's not linked to a lack of resource. It's not linked to an ability that you don't possess or have. It's actually right where we're starting in step 1, and that's why this is step 1, okay? You have to realize this importance of what it feels like, what it looks like, and what is actually necessary in letting go of something, okay? That's why we're talking about abandon. So I want to kind of talk about what is the problem? Like, what is the circumstances of what most of us can see ourselves stuck in or dealing with a lot of times. And so most people, they dream about change. A lot of us, if you're like me, your upbringing, what you saw that you lacked at home, whether that was resources or attention, maybe that was love, maybe that was money, maybe that was vacations, you name it, right? So as we get older, we want to change that. That's a natural part, and it should be a part of who we are, to upgrade and to change. So we get to this place where we want to change, right? We plan for change. We even talk about the change, but a lot of times the average person never actually gets to that change that they talked about, that they dreamed about. And so the reason isn't a lack of motivation. A lot of times I've kind of wondered, even for myself, when I've decided I want to change something, I want to, upgrade something, and it doesn't happen. So it's not a lack of motivation. I think at times we get confused, or we really think like, oh, I'm just not motivated. I'm just not, encouraged enough or inspired or confident. It's not even a lack of resource often. It's not that you don't have enough, that you can't do anything. And that's really so much of what I want to get into when we step into step 2 next week, okay? Just throwing that out. But it's really, they never get past this step 1, okay? They never learn how to truly let go of the things that have gotten them to where they're at, that have allowed them to find maybe some success and some just covering some ground in life. It's like, all right, cool, this has got me. There has to be a time, though, for you and I that we have to learn how to let go of maybe what's worked for us at one time, maybe what we thought we knew. Okay, so I'm gonna really unfold some of that, unpack more of that as we kind of go through the rest of today's Tune In Tuesday. And so, psychologists have found that in their research, they found that, when we take on loss, we feel loss twice as much as we feel a gain in life. Okay, so that means when you lose something, maybe that's a person, maybe that's a materialistic thing, maybe that's just a relationship. We feel that twice as much as we would feel us gaining something in life. So this is why, okay, it literally hurts more to let go of something than it does to get a reward or to gain some kind of advancement in life. Sometimes we feel it twice as much when we have to let go or say goodbye to something, even if we're letting go or saying goodbye to something that's going to allow us to be better and to level up or to be more confident, you name it, right? So this is not a weakness. This is why I'm stating this. Psychologists have literally done the studies to show us that this is biology. This is not a character flaw. We are all tailored into this way of thinking and feeling that when we lose something, we feel it twice as intensively. Like it's much more worse for us. The biology shows of us to lose something than it is to gain something. So this is why this is hard for us, okay? And so in saying that, how do we kind of reframe that? What does that look like? That's what I want to step into. And so, most people hear abandon and this first step that I'm talking about, and they think failure. They think, oh, that sounds like quitting, right? To abandon. They think I'm walking away from something I care about. But the reality is, okay, abandon doesn't mean that you're quitting, that you're letting go of something that you actually need. It's actually, I want you to think of that word abandon as release, right? What is it that you need to release? And again, another word for that is let go. What is it that we need to let go? It means you're deliberately making room for something else, okay? You can't pour into, that ideal of, if I had a cup that's already full and I wanted to put more and I can't because there's no room for it, right? So it's making room by releasing what no longer serves, what no longer fits, and you make room for what needs to come next, what needs to be next, right? And so, I think about this idea and, I will say this, a lot of these steps that we're going through every week, I have the full curriculum, like the actual full guides of what this breakdown is. It's much more longer. It's much more intense. So one of those things that I talk about in really the full chapter or the full step of abandon is this idea of a tree, right? A tree doesn't die when it loses its leaves, right? It's getting ready. So we think about fall time and we notice, all the trees, they change colors, they lose their leaves. It's creating space for what's coming next in the spring, right? So the default mind, okay, going back to that again, it wants to hold on. It wants to hoard. It wants to keep. It wants to protect. But a designed mind, an allergic to average mind, knows when to let go. Okay, maybe not how to, but starts to at least grow in that awareness, right, of what it looks like to actually let go of something that no longer serves, no longer fits. And so that takes me into the big four. Okay, the big four is, there's actually 8 of these in the full framework of abandon. I want to just hit on the biggest 4 that all of us have to become more familiar with, grow in our relationship with. And so what are the 4 things that I really wanted to hit on in this idea of this topic of releasing, right? Abandon. What is it that we need to really focus on and focus on with the most crucial steps in abandoning? So the first one I want to start off with is old ways of thinking, okay? Your old ways of thinking. What you think and this is really... this is probably back 6-7 years ago. I had, much like a mentor of mine talk to me about, drop and forget what you think you know. And I was like, what are you talking about? Right. And so that this is true for all of us at a certain time, or should I say at certain moments in our life, we have to really come back and, what you think you know is often realizing that what I know is what I know. It's what I've learned. It's what I've gained, but it's not everything. It's not the only way. It's not the full truth of every situation. And what you think you know is often the ceiling keeping you from what you're actually capable of. And that's one thing I've had to learn the hard way, okay? The most, I feel like, dangerous words in personal development, a lot of times working with young students, young adults in general, family members. I'm talking about, being in multiple businesses or across multiple industries and working with, employees or other people. One of the most dangerous phrases or words that I hear people say is, "Oh, I already know that. Oh, I already know that." Sometimes you can hear it equate to, "Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking," right? But it's not until you say something or you actually bring a solution, then this person or a person often comes with, "Oh, I already knew that. Oh, that's what I was thinking." Okay. And so that's just another reminder of how this plays out in people's life. Because even though it's not on, the work, it's not in the workplace like I'm talking. Sometimes that's just how we think in life. You see something on social media, you see a scenario, you see something play out, right, in front of you in public. "Oh, I already knew that. Oh, yeah. See, if it was me, I would have done this because I already know." The brain can rewire, okay? It can rewire itself. Neuroplasticity, there's all sorts of research of how the brain can reshape, rewire, and almost in a sense, like we can reprogram our brains, right? But the problem with "I already know that," the problem is, we get into, I think I figured that out. I think I already have what needs to be, like, that puts us in this cycle, and it often keeps us stuck from moving into the new, the better, the more sustainable, like whatever else is actually better for us. A lot of times, "Oh, I already know that," is what keeps you stuck. It's your old ways of thinking. It's maybe at one time what allowed you to do well and maybe even survive, right? It worked, but it's not going to work for where you need to go. It's not going to continue to serve you for what you're actually capable of. Okay, so that's the first one I wanted to bring to light on what are, for the biggest thing of the 8 that we need to start looking at, letting go of, releasing and abandoning. So that's the first one, right? Old ways of thinking. The second one is your old identity. Okay, your old identity. Many people, they won't let go of where they were because they're not sure of where they're going to be. If I let go of where I'm at or where I've come from or where I'm at right now currently, I'm not sure where I'm going to be. I'm not sure where that's going to take me. I'm not sure how I'm going to get to this next spot, right? It's that uncertainty, right? And you got to realize that, you have to see it as, I feel like most people get caught in that, including myself at times, because of what our past has given us in this look of what is evidence. We take our past, what we've been through, again, what feels like success, failures, things that went right, not so well. We take all that as we take it all in as evidence, and we evaluate that to make sense of where we're at today or where the future might move us. But here's the thing: you and I are not our past. Okay, we're not labels that somebody has put on us at one time, or maybe that we've even put on ourselves. Right? We have, and maybe if you haven't heard this in a while, or maybe you needed to hear this, whoever's watching, right? There's somebody watching, and you needed to hear the fact that you have the permission and the right and it's the joy of evolving. That is your goal. That is your mission. That is your job. And you have that permission today. Is we are meant to evolve. It has to happen. Okay. And so part of that evolution so often happens within our identity. We see ourselves as this person. It's so often what I think about, when you're a little kid and you're growing up and, by the time you let's say you're 8 and then all of a sudden you're 10, you still feel like a 6-year-old. And then when you're 10, you still feel like an 8-year-old. And by the time you're 15, you're like, man, I still feel like I'm 12. And that just never stops happening because it's hard to update and outgrow your old identity of who you were, where you came from. But what does that look like when you're, 21, but you still act or feel like maybe you're 15 and that's the way you operate in life? It doesn't work. And so this is how this is playing out in a lot of, grown people's lives, a lot of, young adults even, we're connected to our old ways of being, or our old ways of feeling, which is all linked from our old identity. And that's one of the most important areas that we have to abandon and let go of, that past, that old identity that once served us, okay? So number 3 of the 4 is pride and ego. Another thing we must release and start to continue to come into a natural practice of abandoning is our pride and our ego, okay? Because ego says, a lot of times, ego is there to protect. I want to say that. Ego is there, what often starts in the beginning of life, and for so many scenarios and situations that you go through, ego feels like your friend. It's there to help you, right? But it often it starts out as protecting you, but then it'll keep you stuck if you allow your ego and your pride to be the master of your mind. And so we have to get into this habit of, instead of, I have nothing else to learn, or I already know that, or I've done that. I've done that before. I've tried, right? We have to get into this practice of humbling ourselves. We have to get into this permission that we allow ourselves to see that, hey, asking for help is not weakness. It's really not. Like, being wrong means, you failed. And so when I ask for help, a lot of times people feel like, well, if I get it wrong, I'm a failure. But if I ask for help, that's weakness, so I'm still a failure. And that's an old way. That's pride and ego keeping you stuck. So then we end up doing things wrong, wasting time, wasting resource, energy, all these things. And we never even asked for the right way to do it, or what could have saved us from doing it the wrong way. Okay? Abandon this idea that you always have to be right. Sometimes that just plays into one of the last ones I talked. It's your old identity. We have this fear of being wrong because that make us seem like we don't know the answer. We don't know, the right thing. We're unintelligent, or we're weak, and that's a lie. Okay. We have to more and more release that need to look good, to be right, to be in control, because that's what the average is convinced that we have to have, that you have to have in order to be somebody. But your ability to abandon that pride and ego, freedom's on the other side of that. Okay. More and more freedom is attached to your ability to let go of that pride and ego that wants to, yes, protect you, but ultimately keep you stuck. Okay. So that's number 3 of the 4. And the 4th one I wanted to cover when we talk about abandoning is poor habits, okay? Poor habits. So much of this makes even more sense, and we'll really get to glue in some foundational points and what this looks like practically next week on step 2. But poor habits is one of those things, because habits aren't just what you do, okay? They're really the architect of your daily life. So it's not just something that doesn't affect anything at all. It's actually shaping and creating your day. And out of those days, if you take a majority of those days and you look at, did you achieve? Did you get things done? Did you move the needle, or did you not? You tally that up from your week. And this is really where we start to look at, are we moving closer to where we want to be, to change, to creating, to leveling up? Or are we allowing ourselves, because of our poor habits, often to stay stuck? Right? So often what you repeat is really what you become. And that's not only true mentally, that's why we're talking about that, right? What you mentally rehearse, you become, but that also plays out within your habits, right? You're never stuck. That's one thing that I've talked to a lot of people. You're never stuck because of your circumstances. And that's hard to really realize, because a lot of circumstances, it's pretty obvious. Hey, I'm stuck because I'm limited here, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. But it's not your circumstances that keep you stuck. You're stuck because of what you keep doing often, okay? And so this is true for, yes, so many people around us that we see, but also look into your own life. Where is it that you feel like you're stuck because of the circumstances? And often, I'm telling you, it's really so much more of, what we keep doing that creates a pattern and a cycle that keeps us stuck. And so awareness in that, of the habit is really step 1 of being able to change it. When I become aware of my poor habits, or what's not serving me, or what's not helping me, All right. Then I at least have the ability to see it for what it is and then make the decision of letting that go, of abandoning it. Okay. So I wanted to move into, now that you know those four things that we have to continue to abandon, right? That we have to continue to work towards letting go of. What does it look like now, right? What does it look like to be able to see, okay, where do I move in towards? What is it that, where do I go from here, basically, right? So I want to talk about something, because let's say you get to that point, which you should, and you start to let go of some things that aren't serving you, whether, it was, old ways of thinking, your old identity. Maybe it was that pride and ego, poor habits like we just talked about. But I want to talk about something called the void, okay? Because this is where often once we have let go, once we have released and started to abandon certain things that no longer serve, or certain areas in life, why is it that people go back, right? Why is it that people return back to what they once let go of or were getting rid of in their life? And so after you let go of something, okay, so let's say you started to let go, maybe that was a habit, or maybe that was a vice, maybe that was a poor way of thinking, right? There's something there. Once you let go of that and you started to give that up or abandon, maybe it's a way of thinking, a thought, I'm not good enough, or whatever it is. After you start letting go of that, it's a gap. It's a void, okay? It won't feel like freedom. When you start releasing and letting go of what's not serving you, the next thing is this void. It's a gap, because you've now let something go, and it won't feel like freedom. It feels like emptiness often. Okay. And I've been there, and I won't be past it either. There's still going to be things I got to let go of, and I got to release, and I will get to this place. And your first instinct is always to go back, because again, you're not feeling the freedom yet. It feels like emptiness. You start questioning, was it even worth it? And so psychologists call this the neutral zone. This is totally a part of everything that happens when you release and let go of something. It's the in between, the neutral zone. And so if we think about spiritual teachings, any wisdom, traditional wisdom that we've found in our history, there's some type of version of it that they've all come back to, right? In Scripture, when we think about Jesus, we know about the desert. Okay, so it was like having to abandon something, and then Jesus goes into the desert. The dark night of the soul is another version of it, right? Of what I'm talking about, that gap, that void. Another version of that is the cocoon, right? The caterpillar doesn't just like grow wings inside this cocoon, and then all of a sudden it just starts flying. It actually dissolves inside a cocoon almost completely before it becomes something new. And so that's this whole idea. After you abandon and you start letting go and releasing things, right? And I'm not talking about this whole list all at once, but I'm just saying, like, even the smallest things that you were used to, and they're no longer serving you, you then move into this neutral zone, this in between, the void, right? Again, Scripture calls it the desert, but it's really for you and I a practical feeling and realistic spot of like what a cocoon is for a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. And so the void, it's not a wrong turn. It's part of the process. That's why I brought this up. That's why I needed you to hear this. It's this idea of like, in Japanese art, a lot of the broken pottery that they've had, a lot of times they go back and they take those pieces and they basically remend it and rebond it, but they put glue. The glue is gold. And so when you look at it, the message isn't, because this pottery's broken, it's no longer beautiful. It's actually, it makes it more beautiful, because the places that you let go and you release then allow you to fill it with something better, something stronger, something more beautiful. And so just like in Japanese art, when it reflects, things that have been broken, but they've been, from that broken state, from brokenness, it's found wholeness. That's exactly what happens with you and I. And so it feels like emptiness when you start to release and you start to let go. It feels like brokenness, right? but it's not. It's actually making you stronger. It's actually building you up for something bigger, for something better. And so in that, I want to say, like, here's my challenge as I kind of start coming to an end on this one, because I don't want you to just be a spectator. I don't want you to just listen to what I'm saying today. I want you to be a participant in it, right? And I really feel like, look, there's somebody today that's watching and you're on, and you've been holding on to, it's like you've been holding on to something that you need to let go of, or that you can, but maybe now's not the time. You talked yourself out of it. And I don't know, again, what the specific, area is or what that thing is exactly, but there's something that hey, I need to let this go, right? And then maybe every time you almost do, or maybe you have for a little bit, fear comes in and it tells you this story, right? Like, is this really worth it? Or there's really going to be, there's nothing on the other side of this. Is it really going to be something that impacts you that much or affects you? What if I take a bigger loss than anything? Like, fear will start to come in and get you to reconsider. And often you are. I wanted you to know that this fear, again, this is normal, but your awareness of the biology of how your brain works, of how you were programmed and designed, right? This is a natural part of it, but you get to decide, and you get to choose which lies, which stories from that fear that you're going to let go of. And so often, this brings me back to where, this isn't just some theory that I'm sharing with you. I'm not teaching a theory. I'm actually teaching you things that I've had to learn, that I'm still learning and living myself. And so, quick, example of that for me, for a long time, it was natural for me to learn how to be like a people pleaser, how to be aware, how to see people's attitude, their energy from a young age. This started at home with my family, my upbringing, and then it became more of a social thing for me, But then I got to a point where I had to really let go and release this need to feel. I called it like everybody just loved me. That's kind of what I labeled that in my mind. I had this people pleasing, idea and thought that would dominate me. That I needed to make everybody happy. I needed to be the yes man. I needed to look good. I needed to be right. I needed to just be the guy. Everybody just loved me. That's what I called it. And so I had to really let go of that, because at a certain point in my career and in my life, that was actually getting me to show up and play smaller than I really was, because I was now in a cage. I've now boxed myself in to the opinions and the thoughts of somebody else. And I wasn't truly showing up anymore as me, as Matt Lee, as the confidence that I carry, as the solutions that I carry. And so it became something that it was hard, because I didn't know any other way to approach or to really continue when it came to being around people. And to that point, it had worked out well for me. A lot of people would say great things about me, or they liked Matt Lee, or they were happy to be around me or me around them. And so it worked. So the other side of that was kind of like, well, I don't want nobody to hate me. I don't want anybody, bad mouthing me or talking down about me. But if I didn't release that and let go of that from the opinions of others, what I naturally started doing was I started talking down about myself, because I realized I was playing small. I'd leave a situation, or I'd leave maybe something that was happening with other people. Maybe it was a workplace back then. And I realized I should have said something. I realized I really wanted to voice myself in acknowledging this thing, and I never said it. So if I didn't release this need for other people's approval, for other people's affirmations or validations of Matt Lee, I was playing small for myself, and I knew that. And so more and more, I had to continuously get back to this place where it's like, hey, you are free to be you. You're free to love. It was like these affirmations I would speak over myself that would remind me in those moments, I'm letting go of that. I'm now moving into this. Okay. And so here's where I wanted to challenge you for the rest of this week. And I really just wanted to make it practical for you. Okay. Before next Tuesday. Okay. So before step 2 comes out, I want you to write down just one thing you're going to abandon. And again, you go back to those other 4 areas that we talked about. Again, the full framework, there's 8 that I break down in there, but I don't have time to give you all 8. But when it comes to old ways of thinking, when it comes to your old identity, when it comes to pride and ego, and when it comes to maybe it's just poor habits, what is one thing you can abandon this week that you want to focus on? Okay. And again, this is not a list. Don't go make yourself a whole list. I want you to be specific. Okay. Don't write down bad habits. Write down an actual habit. Maybe just one. That's it. Okay. Don't write down old thinking, old ways of thinking. No, write down the actual thought that you want to release, that you want to start becoming more intentional about letting go of. Okay. And then we don't overthink it. Now that we're aware of it, and now that we've made a note of that, right, we can start to then let go. And anytime that comes back, or that thought, or whatever it is that you're releasing, you now at least have this awareness, okay, which again, shout out to step 2 next week. Okay, we're going to really get into that awareness component. But you now at least are creating the awareness of what you're abandoning and what you're beginning to release, okay? So, you can, even let me know in the comments right now. Maybe you already figured, hey, this is one thing. Drop that in the comments. Let me know what that one thing might be. Or maybe if you don't know yet, hey, this is the one specific thing I'm going to let go of. Maybe hey, in the area of pride and ego, this is where I'm going to focus. Maybe you can drop that in the comments. But I want to see where you're at. What is it that you're going to be focusing on? And, so much of this goes back to, hey, this isn't failure when you release things, when you let go of things, right? A tree doesn't fight the season. When I think about releasing of leaves, right? It trusts it. It trusts it. It knows that it has to drop and release what it no longer needs, and it has to await for what's coming. And that's what we're doing in that same analogy, that same idea of we have to begin to release. And that's the focal point of today in abandonment, step 1, right? How do we clear space, which starts today, right? Which starts right now with step 1. And how do we allow ourselves to become opened up for what is to come and what should be a part of our life? And so I wanted to bring it to an end right there on, the A16 Basics. This is step 1, abandon. Keep in mind, hey, next Tuesday, we're on step 2, which is the letter L. Okay. Remember I told you it's the whole allergic to average phrase. So we're on the first L, which is look. Okay. And I wanted you to just keep in mind, like next week, set a reminder, tell somebody, tune in. But this is one superpower that almost nobody actually has, but is capable of and should. Okay. So I want to share that with you next week as we get into the second step of the A16 Basics. But today, we've talked about abandon. We talked about the importance. We've talked about this is not a failure. You're not a failure because you fear letting go. You fear releasing, right? Psychologists' studies have shown us this is a natural part of letting go of something, taking what feels like a loss. But this is all necessary in making room for the evolution of you, the growth of you. So I'm going to bring it to an end. This has been your boy, Matt Lee, A16 Basics. I appreciate you. I love you guys. Thank you for your time and attention. And I will see you next week for step 2 on the A16 Basics. Peace. I'm out.